When learning to sew, darts might be one of the first things that you encounter and one of the first things that you absolutely should be mastering. Now, if your darts are coming out a little bit wonky and disjointed, puckered, there's creases in the fabrics and just not as neat and pressed as you would like, then this video is for you. I'm going to be going through tips and tricks to create a professional dart each and every time. I'm also going to be showing you the pitfalls as to why your darts might look homemade instead of high-end fashion. What is a dart? Now, a dart in the simplest term is a triangular or sometimes diamond-shaped wedge of fabric that is designed to remove volume from a garment and contour to your body. You have the dart legs, you have the dart point, and in this video, I'm going to be showing you how to calculate the dart bulk. Before we even get to sewing, what might be tripping you up is not understanding where your apex point is. And I don't mean the bust point or apex point on the pattern. I mean the bust point and the apex point on you. Now, to find this, you want to take a tape measure and go from the highest point of your shoulder down to the fullest point of your bust. This is usually your nipple, but it could be different on everybody. In addition, you also want to take your apex to apex measurement. This is going to be the fullest point of one bust to the fullest point of the other. Now, cross-reference these measurements on a pattern, and if they don't align, you know you need to make amendments. So before we even sew our darts, there are steps that we can take with our pattern to really enhance the professional result of them. So what I've just traced off here are actually my personal bodice blocks. We learn how to do these inside the DPL atelier, drafting them to our measurements, and I've added my seam allowance. Something that is really important, if you have a little look at these scrap bits of pattern cutting paper that I've worked with, is to iron your paper and work on a flat surface. It's not just about ironing your fabric. So any folds in the fabric, any folds in the paper, these can all create millimeter imprecisions. They can throw off your fitting ever so slightly. We want to make sure that whatever we're working with is as flat as possible. So running a quick iron over your pattern paper is a really good tip. Next, I just want to highlight on this block, this is my bust point. And to avoid that pointy nipple, to have a nice smooth finish, you always want to lower your dart by at least 2.5 centimeters, say that's about an inch, from the bust point, just so that you're not creating that Madonna-esque nipple. And so what I'm going to do is along my horizontal balance line here, I'm just going to half mark down my dart, and then I'm going to measure along these lines 2.5 centimeters from there, 2.5 centimeters from there, from the bust point, and I can redraw in my dart legs. And this is just going to shorten that dart, really make it a bit more aesthetically pleasing with how it sits on the bust. That, my friend, was incredibly frustrating. So all I did was mark 2.5 centimeters from my bust point. I've kept my bust point on my pattern, but I've just rubbed out the original dart point just to avoid any confusion. Now, here's a brilliant tailoring tip that not many people consider. We're going to reshape the dart legs whilst keeping both the dart point and the dart opening exactly the same. This means we won't affect the waist measurement at all. So if your upper or lower abdomen is a bit more hollow than what the pattern allows for, you can shape your dart legs in a convex fashion, curving them outwards. This widens the dart and takes out more fabric from that area. Alternatively, if you're a little fuller through these areas, you can curve the dart legs inwards. This adds extra fabric and volume back into the bodice or the trouser or whatever dart you're working on. This technique works brilliantly on any pattern piece. The key requirement is that your original waist measurements fit you perfectly and you're simply looking to fine-tune the areas in between. It's one of those professional tailoring secrets, / not that secret, that can make the difference between a garment that fits and one that truly flatters your unique figure. If you are a beginner, if you are using the pattern for the first time, I will always advise toiling it up as is before you make any kind of fitting changes like this. Finally then, before we actually get to sewing our dart, what you want to do is remove the dart bulk. And so have a little look at my seam allowance that I've added here. That is 1 centimeter all the way around. I am going to fold my dart closed as though I was sewing this. I'd be pressing my dart towards the side seam, and I'm going to cut along my seam allowance, and I'm wanting to true out that seam with it folded closed. You might benefit from a little bit of masking tape, and have a little look there. It's ever so slight, but there is a millimetre or two of dart bulk going on here. And that's really going to help me when I come to sew and I'm folding my pattern and I'm treating it as though it's the fabric. So when I come to fold that, the larger the dart, the more pronounced that little piece of bulk will be. I'm just going to use my masking tape as almost like a temporary line of stitching. Have a little look at the seam allowance there. So I want to true that seam allowance out. Make sure that you're not changing the length of your shoulder seam. And when you remove your masking tape, you open up your pattern. Have a little look at how the shape of that has changed. So originally, our seam allowance was this line here. But to accommodate the dart bulk, we've added extra in the pattern. So, cutting out your patterns, same applies. You want to always work with some flat fabric, iron any creases out of it. And when we're ready, we can bring our pattern in. So obviously the first thing here is to align your center front or center back line to the fold of the fabric. Another thing I want to do is pin the top and the bottom first before then pinning around the rest of my pattern. And then we have recently covered this in a luxury sewing techniques video. So if you haven't seen that, go and check it out. But it's all about tailor's tacking your markers. And with a ideally contrast colored thread, what you're going to do is you're going to push your needle through both layers, pull that through. If you wanted to, you could condition your thread with a bit of beeswax. I'm going to leave a tail of thread, and I'm going to pull through and create a loop like so before snipping, leaving quite a generous tail of thread that size as well. We want to do this quite loose because we're going to end up pulling this as we remove our pattern from the fabric. Once you've done that, you can absolutely continue to cut your pattern piece out. And when you come to notch, just do 2 millimeters, if that, into your seam allowance. You really do not want to cut through your seam allowance line here. And even if you cut halfway, what that does is that weakens the seam. You're splitting the fabric, you're creating a weak point. So all we want to use the notches for are balance markers. They're like little jigsaw pieces when we come to sew the garment together. So you just want to do 2 to 3 millimeters. If you slowly and carefully pull your pattern piece off, it will rip. But if you're careful with it, it'll just be a small hole in the pattern piece. You can still absolutely reuse this and still do a tailor's tack through it. What I tend to do is I tend to pinch the threads underneath, and then I just slowly pop the pattern off like that. And that tends to have very minimal damage to my patterns. And so as you can see here, you've got the 2 tailor's tacks. Now, when you open your pattern piece, which you've cut on the fold, you're going to slowly tease those tailor's tacks open like that, look. And then you can go in with a pair of snips or a pair of scissors. And then when you open your full garment and your full pattern, these tailor's tacks mark the end point of your dart. Pinching that together, matching the notches at the shoulder seam, matching the notches at the waist seam, and you're going to be sewing a line of stitching towards that end dart point that you have now marked with a tailor's tack. If you are sewing a dart that is a diamond shape, so it's more like a waist dart or a fisheye dart as it's sometimes called, your dart shape might go something like this, where it comes out here and it comes back in here. What I would advise doing when you are sewing those dart shapes is still close your pattern right sides together and pin that in place. I would advise starting from the center, sewing towards the dart point one way, and then coming back to the center and sewing towards the dart point the other way. Other than that, the technique I'm about to show you for sewing the dart remains the exact same. So I'm matching my 2 notches up. I'm going to secure that in place with a pin. And same on the bottom, I'm going to match my 2 notches up. You can see them there. And I'm going to secure those in place with a pin. Now let's start sewing both darts from the opening. So I'm going to go from the shoulder seam, and then I'm going to go from the waist seam. And when I reach the dart point, I'm not going to back tack. I'm going to hand tie, and I'm going to aim right for the dart point here. But if I actually try and do a centimetre shorter. What I'm going to do with my machine is, rather than this straight angle, I mean, what's happening on this side is we've just gone for a straight angle. As you can see with my stitch in there, I've aimed for it. I've stopped a bit short. I haven't quite hit the mark. This is a bit clunky. We've back-tacked. We've added bulk to a point that really needs to be finessed on a dart. And on both of them, I've just gone wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. Straight line from one point to the other. What you're actually looking to do, and you can eyeball this, you don't have to measure an exact centimetre or anything like that. I'm going to go from my notches, which are here. A straight line to my dart, or my dart point, would look like this. What I ultimately want to do is round it off, and it's ever so subtle, but I'm going to round off, and I'm almost going to sew a couple stitches of an edge stitch right on the edge there, right on the fold of fabric, just 1, 2, as close as I can get to the edge. And then I'm going to not bother back tacking. I'm going to pull it off the machine, and I'm going to hand tie that closed. Same with this one, but I want to curve it ever so slightly just before I get to my dart point. So I'm going to curve that ever so slightly. It's a matter of millimeters, my friend, but it will make all of the difference. Before I get stuck in, you might notice here that I have black thread as my top needle and I have blue thread as my bobbin. But your bobbin thread should not be pulling to the top of your work. So if I could see the blue thread on the top of my work as I sew, I would know that my top tension is too tight, pulling that under and pulling that through. Vice versa, if the top thread was being pulled through to the bottom, then I know the tension is off and it is too tight, pulling that down, pulling that under. Right then, let's put our work, the threads are to the right. I'm going to lift my foot and I'm going to put my work underneath, matching up to that notch. Now, controversial opinion. Because I know that this seam line is eventually going to be caught into a shoulder seam, you might not need to back tack. So for the purpose of this, I'm actually not going to back tack. I've got long enough tails here of my threads that it's not going to unravel. I'm not going to cut them short or cut them close. And I know that when I come to sew up my back shoulder seam to this, it will catch the threads in place. So for the purpose of this, I am not going to back tack. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take my time with my needle in my work to start with, and I'm going to follow that line that I have drawn, heading towards my tailor's tack, which is here. But I'm actually going to, I'll try and slow this down for you. Stop just before it. I'm about 2 millimeters off the edge here. I'm going to slowly curve my work. I am as close to the edge as I can be there. Take my time, and I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3 at a push. I'm using the hand crank to take my needle out of the work. Little thread ends right on the edge as far as I can. And so once I've done that, I can take my thread tails and I can tie them in a knot and hand tie them. And so again, on this side, I'm going to hand knot my dart. Gently, no tension issues, I'm not yanking it. And I'm going to put my little needle threader through my hand sewing needle, pull that through like so, thread my needle. Just go through the stitch itself. You don't want to pick up fibres of your actual garment. Cutting away the excess. Now, when it comes to pressing, you want to equip yourself with a tailor's ham. If you do not have one of these, number one, they're quite affordable, but number two, roll up a tea towel, get something that is going to help you sew the curves. We're training the fabric for a dart. A dart contours, the whole point of a dart is to contour to the curves of the body. And so pressing around a tailor's ham, pressing around a curve is going to train that beautiful dart that you've just sewn to mold to your body. So you want to really push it around that curve like so. And again, from the right side, I'm not stretching it. I'm not pulling and stretching my fabric over the tailor's ham. I'm just trying to find the best part of the tailor's ham that reflects the best part of the curve of my dart. And so, as always, I do like to press from the inside and interior first, and then I'll go and give that a good press on the exterior. You might need to use a pressing cloth. This is just a medium weight calico to show you on the demonstration. You might want to use a pressing cloth. We want it to be a completely seamless line of stitching, like we've got here. And so I'm pressing my dart fullness towards the side seams on this occasion. And have a look how that's sitting now on this side. Because I pressed the bad side, I was just pressing it flat. I wasn't using a tailor's ham, I was just pressing it flat on the ironing table. And this was causing all sorts of issues. This is going to cause this kind of wrinkling and puckering that you don't want to see. Whereas because I'm training the fabric to follow the curve and the contour of the body on this one with a tailor's ham, it's already sitting really beautifully. And so there we have it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I have multiple other videos in the Digital Pattern Library universe walking you through luxury fashion techniques. But if you really want to explore the entire process, then why not come and join us inside the DPL Atelier, where I teach the entire create, cut, contour, construct framework cycle, where we design, we draft, we fit to our bodies and our measurements, and we construct professional garments that look as beautiful on the inside as they do on the out. For now, my friend, I would love to know what little aha moment you took from this video, or even better, because I love a little bit of shared learning with our creative community, what is your favorite tip when it comes to drafting and sewing darts? Stay safe, keep creative, and I will catch you on the flip side.